Welcome to Pathways to Greatness, the show where faith meets focus and potential becomes purpose. I'm your host, Jeff Forrester, mental performance coach, speaker, and believer that greatness begins within. Each episode, we'll uncover the biblical principles, mindset strategies, and daily disciplines that help student athletes, parents, and leaders just like you walk boldly in their calling. Let's step onto the path that leads to true greatness, God's way. Hey, and welcome back to Pathways to Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Forrester, and today's episode is another solo episode. And I have to say is that I'm working on several potential guests, and if they work out, you're not going to be disappointed. You're going to continue to put up with these solo episodes until these people come on. So I'm excited about it, but we all have to see. They're very busy people. So today's episode is why keep trying if it seems you won't win. And this topic came to mind for a couple of reasons. One, as many of you listeners know, is I've been in this season of not having a what you would define as a corporate job, W-2, where I'm working for someone, making money. And I've been really trying to piece things together to make it on my own. And it is not easy. It is not what Instagram will lead you to believe. So you sit there and you think, why do I keep trying if I'm not going to win? The other part is that, as you know, as my kids play sports and my daughter plays in a high level volleyball, at club level volleyball, and they had a great weekend until Sunday. And then they just didn't. And it happens. I mean, it's one of those things that you can't predict whether or not it's going to happen or not. And it even happens to the most seasoned professionals, where sometimes the balls don't fall where they need them to, and the other team does. And then there's a few minor mistakes here and there. And as the great Coach Hubner says, is that nobody intends to not do things well. And so we just have to remember that of just persevering, and that it's usually just like a 3% error that causes the problem. So I say that because why even show up on the final day? You're not going to win gold. You're not going to win championship. So why show up? And so I kept thinking about that. And then I thought about myself, honestly, is how the two really go side by side. And so I want to ask you something very real today. Have you ever worked hard at something, trained, sacrificed, prayed, stayed disciplined, and still felt like you weren't going to win? If you're not watching, I'm raising my hand. Maybe you're putting in the work but not getting recruited. Maybe you're starting but not standing out. Maybe you're injured. Maybe you're trying your hardest and still losing. Maybe you feel like you're following the path that God has put you on, and you start to question, am I on the right path? Did I make a decision to follow this on my own, or was I truly trying to be obedient to God? Lots of questions. This is a revealing episode for everybody of things that go on in my head. So the question becomes, why keep trying if it feels like you're not going to win? So we're going to talk about why trying still matters, even when winning seems unlikely. And this is going to challenge everything you've probably learned over the course of your life, depending on your age. If you're my age, that you've heard the phrase, winning isn't everything. But in society, it really is. We're expected to win. We're challenged to win. And if you don't win, you're a failure. And I was having a good conversation with my wife last night about winning. And I thought of a really powerful John Maxwell quote. I believe it's from John Maxwell, is that sometimes we win and sometimes we learn. And that's the lesson that I continue to remind myself as the days go by, and what I would perceive as being success isn't success. What am I learning? Why am I going through this? And we'll get into it, but the why very well could be not the outcome that I think, but all of the lessons that I learned through trying, how I've developed a sense of resilience to continue to push me day in and day out. So we all came up with words, and my word for 2027 or 2026 is decide. So I have to decide to continue. And then my daughter's is resilience. And I need to remind her of that today. And it's easy to come up with it. It's hard to remind yourself about it, and hard to really remember, okay, if I picked resilience, God listens. So he wants to develop our resilience. For me, he wants to develop my ability to make decisions. He wants to see me make a decision and stick with it. He wants me to learn how to make decisions based on scripture. So it's all of these things that come through. And that's where the why comes in. So we have to redefine winning. One of the biggest sports and lies in sports and life is winning equals the scoreboard. But that's really, as we said earlier, a shallow definition of it. If winning is the only outcome, then most people lose most of the time. Only one team wins the championship. You've probably seen a ton of statistics about winners, and about, if you really looked at the percentages, the greats, the GOATs of all time, lost a significantly more times than they won. There was an interesting stat. I can't remember all of them, but it was Coach Hubner posted it as well, and it was about winning. And the one that stood out to me was Frank Sinatra made over 1,200 songs and only had, I believe it said, like 200 hits. So look, I think Frank Sinatra, 1,200 songs, 200 hits. So that's, what, 17%, 18%, something, if I'm doing quick math. So if you told me, all right, Frank, here's the deal. You're going to go out and you're going to make 1,200 songs over probably a 50-year career, 60-year career, and only 200 of them are going to hit. So it's going to take you all of your life, the majority of your life, just to get 200 hits. Are you willing to put in the work? He might have said yes. I mean, who knows? I mean, the 200 hits made him super famous and very wealthy. But think about it, 50 years and only had 200 hits. Michael Jordan, tons of games played, tons of shots made, and they all didn't go in. But he had to keep trying, he had to keep shooting and keep persevering to just get to where he was at that day. So only a few athletes get scholarships, only one person gets the job, but greatness has never been about outcomes alone. And a great phrase is, if your identity is tied only to outcomes, then your effort will rise and fall with your results, which is difficult. So that's where motivation versus discipline comes in. If you're disciplined, you decide. It's like what I said in the 29029 episode. I decided this is how I was going to show up. I was not quitting until the time ran out or I physically was incapable of going up the mountain again. So that helped me rise and fall, because if I would have been just saying, oh, I'm going to be motivated to do this, I would have quit. I probably would have quit in the first 20 minutes. So you can't tie your identity to winning. It has to be to the discipline and finishing. But if your identity is tied to growth, purpose, and character, you can keep going even when the scoreboard isn't in your favor. Real winners are built long before trophies and hands out. Trophies are handed out, sorry. And here's another hint. Don't eat overnight oats before you record a podcast episode. I have no liquid in my mouth. So if you hear me smacking, I really apologize. I have major dry mouth. So what trying builds that winning can't? So here's the truth. Trying when it's hard builds things winning never will. Again, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. When we win, we don't evaluate what we did right. We just celebrate. We may have a little discussion, high five, off we go. Well, again, like I gave the example with my daughter, if you're winning because just things are fortunately falling in your favor, but you're doing a lot of things wrong, what happens when those things, when luck runs out? Are you evaluating, hey, look, I know we were able to get the ball down on this one, but what happened? Who wasn't moving where they needed to move? What were the things that were going on that we can still continue to improve to just continue to tighten up that game? For me, is I'm not having the success that I'm having. What am I doing? So if I all of a sudden day one became a super popular, really busy coach, I would not have the experiences that I've had over the course of the last going on 5 years now. And so you have to ask yourself, where's the benefit? If you win too quick, there's lessons you won't learn. And then what are the lessons that you're learning along the way? So when keep going, despite the odds, you build resilience, discipline, faith, identity, mental toughness. Anyone can celebrate when they're winning, but not everyone can stay committed when it feels pointless. And the people who develop that kind of perseverance, they're the ones who succeed later in life. And the reason why I say that, when you succeed later in life, marriage, work, again, just life in general, is it's never going to be easy. Everything's not going to fall your way. You may think someone has the golden touch, the Midas touch, because everything they touch seems to do well. But what's going on in the areas that you don't see that are maybe a complete train wreck or a dumpster fire? Where are their difficulties? Maybe it's they're having a difficult time dealing with winning all the time and the pressure that comes along with that, because you'll hear interviews from 5-star athletes, which everybody wants to be a 5-star athlete that everybody wants. Everybody's recruiting. They get flown here and there and gifts and all this stuff. But there's a ton of pressure to perform day in and day out. They cannot have an off day. If a 5-star has an off day, then the critics come out. Well, it's impossible to have a perfect day every day. Every time you touch the field, you're not going to have the best game of your life. You're going to have good games, you're going to have mediocre games, and you're going to have bad games. So you have to be able to balance those and understand that just because someone seems like that they're winning in everything, are they? And then if everything comes super easy for someone for so many years, what happens when things don't go their way? And that's where you see super wealthy people crumble. You see them just absolutely come unhinged when everything doesn't go their way, versus you look at someone who's dealt with hardship day after day after day. They look at it and just say, it's another day. I'm learning lessons. They have a different attitude about life. They have a different joy about life because they understand hardships are part of life and what you do. So, because life will always have seasons when you're not winning, trying trains you for those seasons. Man, it's definitely not one of my best articulated podcasts. Dry mouth will do it. So anyways, I'm distracted. So trains you for those seasons. You have to be ready to go after those difficult days. And it's the Jocko Willenick attitude of good. Things didn't go my way? Good. You didn't win that match? Good. You're not where you want to be professionally? Good. Now what are you going to do? It's how you show up and what you decide to do. The Bible talks a lot about endurance, not just victory. One powerful verse that speaks directly to this is Galatians 6:9. I really like this verse. And it's the Bible is full of endurance. Look at Jesus. When you look at his life, it was all about trying. He was trying to do, not trying, he did do what he was sent to earth towards, but it was full of challenges. His life was not easy here on earth when it could have been. Could have been very, very easy. But it was that endurance. It was the idea of, I need to come down so I can relate to mankind to show them this is how it can be done. And ultimately, you need me because you're incapable of doing this. And so as a Christian, he said it's not going to be easy. We're going to suffer. We're going to be challenged. And so we can't stop trying. The reward is too great for you to give up your life following Christ at all. You have to continue. The reward definitely outweighs the challenges. So Galatians 6:9, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due seasons we will reap if we do not give up. So right there, it's explaining to you the importance of trying. The farmer that plants seeds, he has to, or she has to plant seeds in order for anything to grow. He has to water them. He has to pull weeds. He has to protect them when drought comes. He has to protect them when a freeze comes. He has to protect them from outside predators wanting to come in and eat them before they're fully grown so he can harvest them. And so if he doesn't give up, he's going to get something. And it's just life. We're farmers in life. We're going around planting seeds, knowing that if we tend our garden, we will reap something. We will get something out of it. So if you're trying, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. And the more I read that, think about the world that we live in right now. There's a lot of bad, because that's what our media wants to show us, because that invokes a emotional response of fear, an emotional response to question everything. Now they're dividing us more than they ever have. There's always been a division, but now it is just, it's awful. And if you want to really live a better life, turn the news off. Curate your social media to not have anything coming in from the right or the left. I started following several people several years ago, and now that's all I get. And yeah, it leans towards my conservative views, but it gets me emotional to the point of, I know I'm being manipulated. I know they're trying to get me to get all fired up about the other side, when both sides are not telling the full truth. The truth is in the middle, and nobody's going to show us the middle. Even the journalists who say that they're in the middle, they're not in the middle. Wow, I just got way off track. But it goes back to, let us not grow weary of doing good. You still have to do good. You have to have a beacon, a true north, so that way you will continue to try. You have to try. You have to persevere in doing good, and don't get tired. This is what Pathways to Greatness is all about. You can't get tired. Paradise is just right over that next summit. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. But if you stop now, you won't get to where you are supposed to go. So you have to just keep going. So what that scripture doesn't say is, if you try hard, you'll win every time. No, it says don't grow weary of doing good. It knows that you're going to fail. It knows, otherwise, Paul wouldn't be telling us to not grow weary. He's like, don't get tired of it. Just keep pushing forward. Do good. If you don't give up, there will be a harvest. But here's the catch. The harvest comes in due season. Not your season, not your timeline, God's timing. Sometimes lessons come before the reward. Sometimes the character comes before the calling. Sometimes the growth comes before the opportunity. The Bible never promises instant wins, but it always promises purposes and perseverance. So Jesus modeled this to a T. So think about this from a worldly perspective. Jesus didn't win on Good Friday. He was rejected, betrayed, beaten, crucified. If you stop the story there, it would look like defeat. But 3 days later, that's where it all happened. Resurrection rewrote the meaning of loss. Sometimes what looks like losing is just a chapter, not the ending, and the same is true in your life. The devil thought he had won. Devil isn't all knowing, doesn't know the future, doesn't know what's happening next, doesn't know the decision that you're going to make when he tempts you. He's going to tempt you because he knows the data. And that is typically odds are in his favor. If he does this, you will fall victim to this because you're mankind. He's got a big sample size of what he needs to do and why he needs to do it. But he didn't know. When Jesus hung on that cross and he died, he thought he won. Probably sat back and rubbed his hands together and said, look at that. I did it. And then what happens? 3 days later, it all changed. Jesus came back. So why should you keep trying? So why keep trying when it feels like you won't win? Here are 3 lessons. So let's focus on these 3 lessons. 1, because trying builds you who you are becoming. Your future is being shaped by what you do in hard seasons. 2, because you don't see the full story. You only see the current scoreboard. God sees the whole timeline. 3, because quitting has a cost. Every time you quit early, you reinforce a mindset. When it's hard, I'll stop. And that mindset will follow you into adulthood. I am a prime example of that. I had to train myself out of being a quitter. But every time you keep going, you build a new identity. I finish what I start. That identity is powerful. Like I said in the episode before about finishing, that's who you want to be known for, is I finish the jobs that I start. Practical takeaway. All right, so here's what you need to do. You need to shift your definition of winning. So winning today might mean showing up, staying disciplined, and then keeping with your commitments. Like I said, is make a definition for you. So that way you know what it is. But also, don't make that definition easy. Don't give yourself these easy outs. But you know the challenge. It could be just showing up is really significant because you haven't left the house to go to the gym. It could be I need to stay 45 minutes or I need to do an extra set if you're working out. So there's a lot of different things that you could do. In professional, it could be that winning is today I'm going to send, instead of saying 100 cold emails, I'm going to send 20. Could be I just want to show up and be nice today. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do, but it's define what winning looks like. And then focus on daily faithfulness. You don't control outcomes, you control effort and attitude. Again, it's the math problem that we talk about. E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. Ask this question. What is the season trying to build in me? Ask, see, look, that's grateful. That's gratitude. It's sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. What are you learning where you're at right now? So here's some encouragement. So if you're listening today and you feel discouraged, maybe you feel overlooked, maybe you are tired, maybe you're close to quitting. Let me encourage you with this. Just because you're not winning right now doesn't mean you're losing. You might be growing. You might be prepared. You might be in the middle of a story God hasn't finished writing yet. So keep showing up, keep working, keep believing, keep trying, because in God's economy, faithfulness is never wasted. As I've said, these solo episodes are for you. Yes, they're for me as well. It's a great, powerful reminder that I need on a regular basis to not grow weary, but keep doing good, because I will reap a reward later in life. I hope this blessed you today. I appreciate you listening, and have a wonderful week.